Graham's last few days, he told her that he didn't think that anyone would organise anything like this for him because he didn't have any biological children. But Lorraine and I, as his stepchildren, felt very strongly about having an event to remember Graham, and we're going to share some memories and tell you a few stories. And at the end, it would be really great if you have something to share with the story. But basically, just want to have a few hours of remembering Graham. He was a wonderful stepfather and our best friend. So yeah, this is one of my earliest memories of Graham. So this is Graham, aged about 27 when he first came into our lives. It's in the house in Harpenden in Hertfordshire where Lorraine, who's not over there on the left, and me there eagerly grabbing up some Monopoly money, and my brother Dave at the back. It's where we were living with our mother Janice Edwards and James Edwards. So 1972, I'm about 8 or something, and Lorraine's 9. And the thing I like about this is it reminds me of the fact that Graham, as he came into our life, wanted to be friends with his newly acquired stepchildren, and he would take the time to play games with us. So he's playing Monopoly here with us, but this would go on into the future. We'd end up playing Escape from Colditz, Risk, and all these board games on a Sunday afternoon. He'd play with us, so we kind of thought he was like a really good friend. Now, there have been some photographs on the table of Graham, 3 photographs, and now Richard, who was a former next door neighbour of Graham, Richard and Jerry, fantastic to have you here today. Richard spotted him. Oh, sorry, no, I've jumped ahead. Oh yeah, no, I'm going to go to it. There we are. So, oh God. We did rehearse it. This is Graham there, and Graham. Oh, what's going on? Oh, sorry.
We spent weeks rehearsing.
Yeah.
We can tell.
Are your lectures like this?
I've been promoted to professor now, but I have brain damage, unfortunately. Brain damage. So, yeah, board games, wonderful every Sunday. Another friend of Graham's who couldn't be here today is Peter Roberts. And Peter sent me a few things to read out. So please just tell me about some of your early memories of Graham. Oh, God, I've got the wrong picture of him.
This is the one where we spotted, if you want to spot
okay. Yeah, so Graham is the one on the bottom left there, and Richard spotted him.
You found him.
Yeah.
There you go. So,
What's the prize?
Yeah, what does he win? Lots of cake.
And this photograph in Highbury Grammar School, 1956. So Graham is 12 there, and this photograph was sent to us by Peter Roberts, who can't be here today. And Peter Roberts was also in that photograph, and I asked him. Hello. Yeah, this happens in the university as well. It's the prizes for people who got photographs.
Arsenal season ticket.
the prize is you can have a takeaway.
Second prize is 2 Arsenal season tickets.
Peter Roberts in that photo met Graham at school, and so he said, Peter Roberts says, I was never too sure about Graham's mum's cooking, Eileen. I was never too sure about Eileen's culinary skills, as Graham's extremely narrow diet seemed to consist of spam, ham, chipolata sausages and fried eggs. Graham stayed at my house a few times when his parents went on holiday, and my mother used to sometimes find it very difficult to work around his culinary requirements. Now, I'm sure those of you who do know him know that he didn't change much over the years. In fact, I know from when, after I'd had a stroke and my wife, Marion, came over from Vienna to visit me in the rehabilitation centre, Graham would organise a taxi to collect her from the airport because she's a cardiologist in Vienna. She'd arrive, and as soon as she arrived in Gerrards Cross, Graham would greet her and say, can I do you a Friday on toast?
And I happily always said yes.
Yeah.
Please.
So yeah, fried eggs didn't change.
And when he was ill, he used to say, I've run out of eggs. Can you go and get me some eggs for toast?
He asked you to go and buy some.
Yes. Well, he loved his eggs.
So another memory. Highbury Dynamos. The Highbury Dynamos, founder members mostly consisting of our school friends. This was another of Graham's initiatives. We played every Sunday in the season, predominantly at Hackney Marshes, hundreds of pitches, awful, no facilities. Also at Finsbury Park and Parliament Hill Fields. So again, if those of you did manage to get it, that Graham is the lad on one knee in the front there.
Under the purple arrow.
That was convenient, wasn't it?
Dynamos. During one of my visits to the Emirates with Graham, whilst we were having cups of tea at Phil's lovely apartment before the match, he said how much he treasured our friendship, which went back to when we were both 11 years old. I can only reciprocate, my friend. Rest in peace. And where do we go to from there? Yeah, so in 2020, when I knew Graham was ill, I wanted to understand more about how he came into our life and about his past, and I wrote him a letter, and he replied with some information about his early days. So he was at Highbury Grammar School in 1956 in that photograph when he was 12. He says, I started work in August 1960. I started work in August 1960 as a clerical officer in the Ministry of Housing. And so this is, I think, is probably a work picture, and again, yeah, under the purple arrows, which you see. In January 1961, I was transferred to another department, and Gina White took over my job. We got together then and went out often with Peter Roberts and his then girlfriend Linda. To achieve promotion in the Department of Housing, I went to evening classes and eventually got 4 A levels. I was sponsored by the department to get a statistics degree. Gina and I married, and we went to live in York, where Gina did a degree at the School of Art. Now, over to the right, we have Gina's mother, Dolly. I don't. This is not showing up on there, is it? Anyway, that's where you handle your fingers.
Yes,
So Dolly, Gina's mother Dolly is still alive, living in Wiltshire, near to my father, and she's 105.
Wow. There you go, Phil.
And,
this is Dolly.
yeah, and Charlie.
Charlie died, I'm not sure when he died, a long time ago.
And Eileen and Bill, Graham's mum and dad.
Does Dolly still live by herself?
No, she's in a nursing
care
home
home.
now.
Oh, she's in a nursing
Yeah.
home.
After I got my degree, we had to move back south for my job at the Department of the Environment. Dolly, Gina's mother, had heard from a friend that Crabtree Lane in Harpenden, the house in Crabtree Lane, Harpenden, was up for sale. We bought it. We did not know anyone in the area. One day on my way to work, I saw a poster in the window of 12 Gilpin Green advertising an amateur dramatic production. I knocked on the door to ask for tickets, and Janice Edwards opened the door and said we could go on the Saturday evening with her husband Jim. So it's the early pictures of Graham with our mother, 1972. We stayed, after the play we went back to Gilpin Green, and the 4 of us chatted long into the night and became good friends. Over the next months, Jan and I became closer. We would spend evenings together with me and Jan in Crabtree Lane and Jim and Gina in Gilpin Green. Over the ensuing months, Jan and I took the decision that we wanted to be together permanently. Jim and Gina has made a similar decision, but they would need to tell you about how that worked out. We all went on holiday to the Gower in July 1972, and when we returned, Jan and I moved to High Wycombe, and Jim and Gina and the three of you moved to Marlow. So they got married in 1972, and yes, and this Lorraine and I and my brother Dave lived with Gina and my father in a house in Marlow, where I subsequently later met Martin, my school friend over there. So back to 1972, I'm going to pass over to Lorraine.
This is again a picture, because it's just a particularly nice picture to remind us all, isn't it?
Stand up. Project.
So I was just saying that my earliest memory of Graham was around this time when apparently there's some football match. It was October 3rd, 1972, I'm now reliably informed, when Arsenal beat Rotherham 5-0 in the League Cup. Now I remember Graham suddenly falling on the floor, kicking his legs in the air, punching the air, screaming 5-0, 5-0, and I was absolutely terrified. And as I got to my teenage years, I can't deny that I developed a slight crush on Graham. After all, he was a handsome late 20-something, as you can see from these pictures. This picture, I came across this when I was, after Graham died, and I was looking through stuff, and this is a lovely picture because it just shows our cousin Duncan, who is here today. We're very pleased to see Duncan, with his dad Roy and Sheila, who are sadly no longer with us. Brother Dave at the back, we've got Graham and Jan, Phil, Gina and Jim, and in the front me with Steve. To our young eyes and lives, it seemed perfectly normal to have 4 parents and a new set of grandparents too. It was decided by the grown-ups that it was best for us, the children, to live with my father and Gina in Marlow in Buckinghamshire, where we went to school, and we spent every other weekend in High Wycombe with Graham and Jan. The experiences contrasted strongly. At home in Marlow, breakfast would be cornflakes or Rice Krispies, whereas Graham would treat us to frosties and ricicles. Our holidays with Jim and Gina would be in May in constant drizzle, spending the days in garden centres and the evenings playing interminable games of Scrabble. This is how I remember it, of course. And then in sunny August, we would go with Graham and Janice to a holiday camp by the sea, like Burnham-on-Sea, and Graham would give us all lots of money to go and play in the amusement arcades. So by the time this photo was taken, as you can see, in 1980, Jim and Gina had a child of their own, Stephen. He's now a 49-year-old father of 2 living in Munich. Now, Graham was a brilliant chess player, and he achieved a high ranking in the leagues in which he was a member. He also played postal chess, which meant that each player would post their single next move to each other. So as you can imagine, games would go on for a very, very long time. And my son Jamie, who's here, obviously he's older than this now, but he now is the proud owner of this chessboard, his inherited it. So very good. And as a grandfather, Graham, he was overwhelmed when my son Jamie, his first grandchild, was born in 1994. However, although they loved having become grandparents and drove up to Yorkshire to visit the new addition, they were not exactly hands-on. Would you like to look after him for a few days? I would ask. Maybe when he's out of nappies, they said. Then it was maybe when he starts walking, and then it was maybe when he starts school. And a very young Max here, my son, who's now, David's son, who is now coming up to 25. He, for some reason, started calling Graham grandfather, which Graham absolutely loved. So Graham became grandfather and Mum became grandjan. And they always showered their children, Jamie, Max, and our brother Dave's daughters Charlotte and Rebecca, with gifts, treats and days out. Never forgot their birthdays, although that was probably Mum's doing. This picture on the roller coaster, it's just a favourite one of mine because of the expression on my mum's face. Believe it or not, it was a relatively slow roller coaster.
It's a Lego.
And this is one of the pictures that you pay for, which I wouldn't normally do, but so when we saw, when you see the pictures at the end, I looked at it, I've got to have this picture. And then here we have Graham with Roy, my uncle, my mum's brother, and father of Duncan here. And we have wonderful Christmases with all the parents, surviving grandparents, and our Aunt Sheila and Uncle Roy, and cousin Duncan. Graham and Roy would get stuck into the Ruggles, and after our huge Christmas lunch, served around 4 o'clock, Roy would always fall asleep on the floor for a few hours. He was a great support to Graham in his early days of motor neurone disease, but sadly died a few years ago. I don't know, Duncan, if you would like to say anything?
We used to get together every Christmas, and I'm afraid my father was a very bad influence. He would bring the big cans of Ruddles, the party 6s or party 8s, and Graham and he would throw them into the back garden. And they'd have a pile of these things after a few days of Christmas, and I think Graham was really quite pleased with that, and Dad just thought it was quite normal.
I was just talking to Duncan as well, and I would say basically, I think Roy was the brother Graham ever had.
Yes,
He's
yes.
kind of, just
Yes,
absolutely
they
adored
really
Roy.
got on with so well together.
Was Graham an only child?
Yes. I
You
think
would never have thought that.
he told me that he didn't want to have children because his mother was quite mentally unstable. I think he was worried that there was a gene that might have carried on to children. He was also very selfish.
Is everyone
Just
still
wanted
with
one to
us?
himself.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry, it's very personal childhood memories, but I think seeing Graham age 27 is great. This is one of my favourite photographs I took of Graham at the FA Cup final between Arsenal and Aston Villa at Wembley, and I do like that photograph because
He liked that photograph as
yeah,
well.
it's good times really. So I'm now going to go on to Arsenal, and it's a personal account. So I mean at school I supported Manchester United because all of my friends at school, even though I was at a school in Harpenden, they all supported Manchester United. So I just supported the team that everyone else supported. I had no knowledge of football at all. I didn't follow it at all, and. But this man, Graham Try, kind of led me into a life of Arsenal. So this is the clock end of Highbury. It's in the 1960s, I think. But the clock end of Highbury is where I was taken with Lorraine and my brother David by Graham in 1976. So you can see why it's called the clock end. But my memory is best summarised by this photograph, because I remember standing along in front of these kind of metal bars, which is probably just about my height at that time, and I couldn't see what was going on the pitch, but Graham later told me that was the day that Arsenal beat Everton 3-1. So it's a very important day. Because I've since had winning bets on that. Whenever Arsenal are at home to Everton, I always put money on 3-1, and I've won about 3 times, so not a lot. But that's my memories. So Graham took us to 18th September 1976. We were down there, didn't know a thing about football. But in 2006, Arsenal decided to build a bigger stadium, and their stadium in Highbury, they decided to sell for development into, well, they call it 700 luxury apartments. And so this is, and the football pitch is landscaped into gardens. So Highbury Stadium became Highbury Stadium Square. And around that time, around 2006, I was living with an old friend who's a musician. So I was living in a council flat near Peckham, and I had enough fun because he's a fairly successful musician and I was enjoying it, but he had no cleaning skills at all. I was getting fed up of living in a god-awful dirty apartment, and I was on holiday with Marion. We were in Crete in Greece, and I had a dream. I just had this dream that I went to see one of the flats in Highbury Stadium Square, and I dreamt I walked into this flat and there was floor-to-ceiling glass windows. I hadn't actually been there, but that's exactly how they are. And there was daylight coming in, and I felt really, really good. In the morning I woke up and I thought, wow, maybe I should go and look at flats in Highbury Stadium Square. So when we got back to the UK, I called Graham. said, Graham, I want to go and look at the flats in Highbury Stadium Square. Will you come and help me look at things? You know, I don't want to do it on my own. I need somebody's help. And he met me in London. He came up, and was it about October 2009? I took this photograph. So we're standing on what was the pitch, which is now the Landscape Gardens, and we looked at a few flats, and none of them were particularly. They didn't really strike me as very nice to buy. And Marion was saying, you need to get flat high up, get the light. And a few weeks later, I got a phone call from the sales office saying, oh, Miss Edwards, we've got a flat on the 5th floor of the South Stand, maybe you'd like to come and have a look. And I did. I went and looked, and I thought, and I bought it, but this is kind of basically the kitchen. Oh, it's a kitchen lounge area, and living out of the living room window on the left-hand side, tiny little living room window, was Graham's favourite view, because as soon as he walked in, he just said, "Wow, you can see the Emirates Stadium." And this is a view from the window. So yeah, how is that? Yeah, Emirates Stadium, not a flying saucer. Yeah. And he really loved it there. He thought, wow, that's great. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the post in my mailbox in Highbury Stadium Square with the Arsenal logo on the top. I had noted, again, remember, I wasn't interested in football. I bought this flat because I remember the flats being built there. And this letter, because it's not hard enough for me to read it, it says, "Dear Dr. Edwards," because I got a PhD, I'm not a medical. "Dear Dr. Edwards,
He's a professor now.
Congratulations on the purchase of your Highbury Park Square apartment. As an additional benefit of your purchase, you have the opportunity to buy 2 season tickets at Emirates Stadium for next season. You will be given the chance of any remaining seat at best available. Please follow the process below." So you get to contact Isabel Jones at Arsenal Football Club. So I got this in post, and I was thinking, Graham likes football, doesn't he? So I sent him a letter, and he rang me after he received. He says, "Phil, I got the letter about the season tickets. It's my lifetime ambition to have season tickets for the Arsenal. This is so good." And I was saying, well, why not call them up? Yeah, I'll give them a call. So he rang them up and saw what was available, and he rang me and said, "Phil, Isabel was very friendly. She said there are 2 tickets in the Silver Circle, or whatever it's called, I don't know, where you get a 3-course meal and champagne brought to you at the table. Says they start at 20,000 each." And I was saying, I'm not paying £20,000 for a season ticket. But he then found tickets that were quite nice in the East Stand, and for about £1,200.
Bargain.
And so my connection with, I went from not really following football to buying a flat in the stadium with Graham's kind of help and Mariam's help, and then ending up with season tickets. And over the seasons, since whatever it was, 2013 or something when we started, I really got into it. I really did enjoy going. But unfortunately I had a stroke, which I'll tell you about a bit in a few minutes. But this was my last time I went to Arsenal Stadium to see a game. It was in 2019, so this is a few months before Graham's illness was there, and but he helped me get to the stadium, and he arranged for disability access and stuff. And so 2019, I was back at the stadium, and we had a good day. I'm sure Arsenal won. But it was very nice. He never sang to any of that, so I tried to get him to sing the Arsenal songs. He wasn't a big fan of singing, but he really. And when the Arsenal fans would say, "Stand up if you hate Tottenham, stand up," he would never do that. So if you hate Tottenham, stand up. He thought that was ridiculous. So that's my little story of Arsenal Stadium and Arsenal. And Arsenal are still winning, I think. They were winning 2-0 at half time. Pam is an Arsenal supporter, and would often come round and chat to Graham about Arsenal. Well, let's continue with a little story, our memories of Graham. Back to Lorraine.
It's still 2-0 for him.
Is it?
2-1 full time.
Oh, is it? Phone's
That's the
been
full-time
updated.
sport.
Oh, right.
That's
You're
right
right.
on this day, because I was hoping that Arsenal were going to be promoted and we were going to be promoting the Premier. I was hoping Arsenal were going to win the Premiership.
You're
This
drugs.
event. But unfortunately, it wasn't.
There was back in February, Paul said, let's have a memorial gathering to celebrate Graham and Arsenal winning some
The title.
the
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
But apparently the Arsenal thing didn't happen. So this is showing Graham and Janice, our mother. They were devoted to each other for the 43 years that they were together, and they even retired at the same time and went on many holidays around the world. And this is locally, this is them on the London Eye, and at Black Park, which isn't far from here, they always used to take, when we come visiting, they'd always take us to Black Park, give us ice creams and walk around and everything. But when they weren't on holiday, oh sorry, this is another one of them on a cruise somewhere, I don't know where, but you can see how happy they were. There's, when they weren't on holiday, they were often found on their settee in Gerrard's Cross, as I'm sure a lot of you who knew them well know. They really did not move from that settee. They'd be found at home in the lounge watching telly. And Graham would raucously repeat punchlines from comedy shows. My son Jamie said he had genuinely the most iconic laugh of anyone I've ever known. It always makes me laugh to think of him cracking up more and more the further he got into telling something, no matter how amusing or not the thing was. Certain TV stars were a complete turn-off for him. He would shout at the TV if the announcer said, "And now Bob Monkhouse." Graham would reach for the remote and grumble loudly, "Not on my telly it isn't." And he and Mum were so inseparable that they even shared household tasks like clothes washing. Graham would fill the machine and then Mum would turn it on. When Mum died, Graham had to find the instruction booklet to learn how to work it. He must have watched every single episode of NCIS at least 10 times. It was his favourite programme, along with the recent crime drama Strike. It transpired, of course, that he fancied actresses in both shows. He was always one for the women, and certainly enjoyed all the attention he received over the years from Gina, Jan, female neighbours, and in the last months, the female carers who looked after him, but no male carers were allowed.
Just we've got a few more minutes. I used to travel from London to Gerrard's Cross on Sundays because I knew there would be a Sunday roast being made for Graham. And my mum used to make a wonderful vegetarian toad in the hole for me. And so that was a regular Sunday trip over, so I spent time with them and she did a lovely roast dinner. And in 2014 I went over on my way to stay with them before I flew off to Bali with Mariam, and this is the last photograph I took of my mum. We both had a couple of glasses of vodka. Unfortunately, sadly, she died from acute pancreatitis in 2014, and Graham's life absolutely fell apart. So I spent nearly every day with him going to see my mum in intensive care, and I was trying to say, be positive, come on, we'll get through this. But after she died, he was just inconsolable and just didn't know what to do. He basically gave up on life. I said I'd still come over on the Sundays. I said, come on, we'll find a way through this. And Christmas came along, and I said, come on, we're still going to do Christmas dinner. You used to help Mum with the Christmas cooking. And Christmas morning is always a cooked breakfast. He said, I can't cook a cooked breakfast. And if he cracked the yolk of an egg when he was frying it, he wouldn't be able to eat it. He said, I can't eat it. It goes broken. And but Christmas morning, he cooked a breakfast, and I took this photograph of him because I was so pleased that we got through it. It's Christmas morning. He'd done the cooked breakfast. Fantastic. I started to do a painting of the memorial gardens where my mother's ashes are interred, which is just around the corner in Stoke Poges, because I wanted to kind of have something to sort of in his house that would make us remember her. And it was taking a long time. It wasn't doing particularly well. And in Easter 2016, I went over to spend the weekend with him, and I was going to try and finish this painting. In the morning of Good Friday, I was in the bathroom next door to Graham's bedroom, and I found myself on the floor of the bathroom, completely conscious. And I thought, this is really weird, I can't get up. And I heard Graham moving around, so I just shouted for him, Graham, come in to help me up, and just give me your hand. He was saying, no, you're too heavy. Phil, I don't like the look of this. I was saying, nonsense, it's fine. I was completely conscious, but I just didn't know what I was doing on the floor. I said, I really don't like the look of this. And he called an ambulance, and they immediately thought, oh, your son is collapsed on the bathroom floor. And I was whisked off to Wickham General Stroke Unit, and this is my selfie from the day I arrived. I ended up getting transferred to a rehabilitation centre, and Graham would come in every day, usually with Mariam, who was flying over from Vienna to come and visit with me. And he was so important at this point. But it was, in a way, my stroke kind of took his mind off the grief for Janice, and he started to kind of rebuild his life. When I was discharged from Amersham, I got back to doing what I'd started to do before my stroke, which is cutting Graham's hair. One of my earliest efforts. But we would go down to the memorial gardens to sit by the ashes where my mother's ashes are interred, and he was starting to get his life back together, and thanks to the rain, she persuaded him to travel to Vienna to my wedding with Mariam. Mariam's father, Mehdi, on the left, and her stepmother, Kitty, on the right, and Graham over there. So we got married in Vienna in 2017, and Graham had gone from, I can't go anywhere without Janice. He was now travelling, coming to our wedding. Mariam and I would go to Tenerife every February because just to get some sunshine and a nice warm pool for me to swim in. I need to have warm water because I can't swim very well. And she managed to persuade Mariam persuaded Graham to come to Tenerife with us, which was incredible. And he said, I can't go on holiday without Janice, but he actually came out and had a good time. I bought a chess set because I knew this was a chance for me to try to improve my chess. So every day Graham beat me at chess. But it was a great time in a way, because what was really fantastic about this is that Graham was swimming during the day with Mariam and I, but we found towards the end of the holiday, Graham started to get up early on his own and go swimming before breakfast. Amazing, really starting to be very positive. I've been swimming. And when he got back to Gerrard's Cross after this holiday in Tenerife, he started to go to the Pound Sports Club and was swimming. So he was going swimming. He started to become very proactive about his life. And so in 2019, he was really starting to get himself together again. But then, very sadly, he got this diagnosis. I noticed when I spoke to him one time from Vienna, he was slurring on the phone. I was saying, this is really weird, Graham, something not right. I don't know how he ended up going to the...
I can't remember now, it was a few periods.
One of our...
I think one of them was like, he went with my son to a football match. They went to the Emirates when I couldn't go. He went with Roger, and he goes, when the match finished, he got this sudden cramp in his leg, and he couldn't stand up. And he says, Roger, I can't walk, so, and when Graham came back, I thought, oh, Graham, you were just using that as an excuse to get a taxi. Because that's what they ended up having to do, from the Emirates, get a taxi, because he couldn't walk. Wow. He said he wouldn't be able to walk to the tube station to get to Marylebone, so we have to get a taxi. But then afterwards, when you're reading about the disease and everything, that's what you do, you get sudden muscle cramps. So that was a warning sign.
Early sign.
That was an early sign, and sometimes when I went with Graham to the Emirates match, sometimes he would stumble and grab onto my arm, and I used to say, Graham, steady on, people are going to think you're drunk. We're going to a football match and they're going to think. But those were the telltale signs which we didn't really pick up early on, but those were the warning signs that you do lose your,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So now we're towards the end, I'm afraid.
So this is a picture of Graham with the Graham Try Memorial Club Cup. And Graham was delighted to have the new Captain's Day Claret Cup named after him. And Sean, who's here today, thank you for coming. Yeah, Sean took this
He was
photograph.
absolutely delighted.
He was over Fernbird, but you can just see from the pictures how much he's just changed in a short period of time. So Sean and Vice Captain Steve James visited Graham in his garden in September 2020 to show him the new cup. And it was his wish to be at Captain's Day to present the trophy that year, but his failing health and the COVID-19 restrictions meant this wasn't possible. So instead, Graham wrote some words that Brian read before presenting the cup in October that year. Sadly, Brian isn't here today. Brian and Linda were going to be coming, unfortunately, they're both being struck down by health problems and just haven't been able to make it. But Brian and Linda were also very good friends, very supportive of him. This is what Graham said and what Brian read out. I joined the society. Which society was it?
It was Health and Social Security.
Oh,
where,
right.
Graham worked, and he was a member for. I think he was
Okay.
saying that.
He joined the society in 1996 at Brian's invitation, had 23 wonderful years playing more than 100 unfamiliar golf courses with a great set of playing partners, some of whom I have known from the beginning and others who I've met along the way. I even had the honour of being captain for 2 years in the early 2000s. Perhaps my single regret is that despite many attempts, I was never able to win Sean's charity champagne draw for less than 30 points. That means nothing to me, but my playing ability never rose much above the ordinary, but I did once finish runner-up behind our captain and lost 2 Jubilee Cup finals with my good friend Michael Wright, who is also here today. Thank you for coming. We have a great society with great members, and long may it thrive. This great success can be measured both by all your sense of fun and enjoyment and by your generosity. Mike Munnelly raising £1,000 in a half marathon for motor neuron disease research, and Sean arranging collections, £300 at the Workers versus Retired match in 2020 for the Rennie Grove Hospice, who helped look after me particularly as I get weaker. The final icing on the cake is that I can continue to be a society member each year when the Graham Try Captain's Day Claret Cup is presented. And indeed, in that September of the year Graham died, David, my husband, and I went along to the Burnham Beaches
Yeah, it was
Club
South Buckinghamshire.
in South Buckinghamshire.
Barnum Common.
And was very privileged to be able to present the cup on Graham's behalf to the winner that year. So as MND robbed Graham of his speech, he communicated by typing on his iPad and using thumbs up or down signals. And it didn't help that the pandemic meant friends were unable to visit. But it was his constant touch with his best pals, exchanging emails and texts with Tony, Michael, the 2 Peters, another Peter here today, thank you for coming too, and Brian. And I drove down from Yorkshire to stay with him as often as I could. And his neighbour Pam also here today, thank you. She'd been keeping an eye on him and she contacted me to say he deteriorated rapidly. She held her phone to his ear and I told him I was on my way and that he needed to hang on so he could explain to me what all this nonsense was about, some European Super League. Pam says he gave the thumbs up. I don't think he was happy about it. In his last hour, when he was peaceful but unresponsive, my son Jamie messaged to say, "Tell him that the Super League seems to be falling apart already. Chelsea have pulled out, then Manchester City. Tell him to get Arsenal to sort it out too." I told Graham this, and I only wish he'd been able to hang on long enough to hear that Arsenal had also pulled out. Then Graham was a constant in my life, and I shall miss being able to talk to him about anything without any judgment. He only ever gave good advice. He was always there to talk me out of doing something stupid. And even when I did do something stupid, which was many times, he would never get angry. He would just roll his eyes and laugh, and I think I miss his laugh most of all. So these are just a few last pictures, just obviously showing how happy they were on holiday together. And the last picture, which is the one you saw in came, I think Phil took in the garden in Jones Cross. To me, it just sums up how happy and devoted they were to each other. So thank you ever so much for listening, and if anybody would like to make any verbal or picture contribution, I know some of you brought pictures and stories, so the floor is now yours, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for listening to our little mentors. Does anyone have any kind of...
I know Martin's got something, I know Michael, was it Michael you bought? Someone bought a USB loaded with stuff. Was it you, Peter?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got a USB with loads, thousands of photos on it.
Thousands.
Weekends and holidays we went on, so
Well, I'm quite happy if you would like to put it in, we can have a little look at them, if other people are okay with that.
Our first day together. And in those days, our golf society was a bit good in that it would play 2 rounds of golf on the same day. So you'd arrive first thing in the morning, have a breakfast, bacon rolls, coffee, go out and play around, come in and have a lunch, usually ham, egg and chips, but something like that. Sit with that, then go out and play another round, another 18 holes in the afternoon, before you sit down for a dinner in the evening. Great stuff. The first course we played was one in North London called Hadley Wood. And Graham and I turned up. Hadley Wood is a high-class quality championship style course. And Graham turned up with 3 golf balls, which I think he lost in the first 2 or 3 holes. I had quite a few more and probably lost as many in the first few holes, but that was the start of a friendship, and we sort of continued on from there. I think there were lots of times when we played together, and the Jubilee Cup, which is a pairs competition that has runs. We got through to the final a couple of times, but we never actually made it. There was always something that prevented us, usually me, but we got there and we enjoyed it. And somewhere I brought a photo of the last time that we were on the course together in the Jubilee Cup final. Graham took me to watch Arsenal once, and we went to Phil's Fat beforehand and made our way into the ground at the Emirates. And it was one of those seasons where Arsenal were having a pretty good season. They weren't necessarily top, but they were scoring very freely. He took me to see one Arsenal played home against one of the lower teams, Stoke in that case. 0-0 draw, wasn't it? I never got asked again, did I? I'm just such a bad omen for them. But that didn't detract from the way that we got on, and we go together. I think, looking back on the first things that I realised when Graham was starting to get ill, long before anything was really developing, we'd go out for lunch and he had difficulty swallowing and problems with his tongue, so the food was not always there. And that was, looking back on it, the start of it. But even through that, the greatest frustration I think for him was sort of losing control of his motor functions, but his brain was still there and active.
Yeah.
And that was a really big frustration. We tried to do what we could to keep that going. Not very successfully, but you've been a great friend over the years.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
go away for a weekend away pretty well every year. And we went to a hotel one year, as we did most years, and we decided that we'd go to the jacuzzi one afternoon or evening. There's a big jacuzzi there. And as we walk into the jacuzzi, Janice, who, how can I say, not to be unfair to, was not quite aware of the world, what goes on in the world sometimes, you know. And as we got towards the jacuzzi, she turned around to the chap who was taken down and said, "Oh," she said, "do we all take our clothes off?" No. And the man said, "What are you doing there, darling? He's entirely."
Where was this, Peter?
Oh, I'd have to go through all the photos even to begin to remember it. One of the hotels, yeah. Sorry?
How many holidays did you go on with them?
Well, you could say this over a period of 20 years or more, once a year.
And you actually met on holiday, didn't you?
And it wasn't just weekends away,
Yeah.
essentially they were weekends away, but we went down the Nile for a week, went to Amsterdam. Yeah, I think they were a lot, we went to the Nile, they went to the Nile for a second time actually, because when Rita and I said, oh, we're thinking of going down the Nile, I said, we'll come with you.
Yeah.
We said, we've been, they said, we'll go again. But yeah, Amsterdam and Nile, and then I think the rest were all in this country.
Right.
Oh no, one, because these things keep coming back, don't they? We had a very nice, long, expensive weekend at a chateau in France. Yes, that was very, very nice, yeah. So yeah, lots of, they keep coming back as you talk, don't they?
Oh, just so glad that Graham made so many good friends.
Feeding tubes and what I would say about it, what I would think about it, what I would recommend, and if I could come and watch the videos together with him, he didn't want to do that on his own. And so anytime we, even after Phil's stroke, when Phil moved to Vienna, we came to London, we visited Graham and also made sure, even if Phil hasn't got time because he went to university to work, I made sure I go to Jazz Cross and see Graham, and we watched his videos and talked about his illness and his fears and his worries, and yeah, I mean, it was very kind of him to
I
trust
think he
me.
had a fear of the feeding tube. I remember I dropped him off at the hospital when he had it done. I picked him up when the procedure finished. And then afterwards, when I brought him home, he goes to me, Pam, do you want to have a look at it? I said, once he had it in, it was okay. But I says, I don't want to have a look at it though.
But as you say, I was the only one that wasn't bothered about helping him, and I administered the liquid food quite a few times, but he was saying that I was about the only one that didn't find it, you know, wasn't squeamish about it. But going back to eggs, another thing I got from talking about eggs is I bought him something. I found it in Germany, and I cannot say this word. There's a very, very long word for a device. It's a metal thing you put on top of a hard-boiled egg, and then you drop this ball at the top, and the ball goes down and cracks the egg, and it's just sort of like a perfect crack. And Marion speaks German, so you can remember what it is. It's a long word, but it basically literally means something like egg cracker. Well, anyway, he absolutely loved this device. He was sort of
Did he have
delighted
one?
with it. Yeah, got him one, got him one back, managed to find where they were, and he absolutely loved that. But I also remember coming down with Max, and we'd sort of always come down and visit, and then Mum and Claire would be delighted to see us, come to the doors, welcome us in, do you want a drink, blah, 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 and then 10 minutes later they'd be on the settee. You can look after yourselves. And they'd take us out for meals and things. This was in later years. But they'd take us, when the grandchildren were younger, they'd take us to Ox Farm Park and the Children Open Air Museum, Black Park. Always had some lovely little trips out with them.
But he spoke really highly of you, Mario. He thought you were great.